The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the barren wasteland. The air was still, the silence oppressive. There was something eerie about this place, a dead, forgotten world that had long been untouched by life. A lone traveler walked slowly through the desolation, his boots crunching against the dry earth with each step. His name was Jack, a man of few words, always searching for something, though he never knew exactly what. Today, however, was different. Today, something would find him. Jack had been walking for hours, his eyes scanning the horizon, but all he saw was more of the same dust, ruins, and empty silence. It felt as if the world itself had died. His water supply was running low, and the weight of fatigue was beginning to take its toll. Just as he was about to take a rest, he heard something. A faint sound, almost like a child crying. At first, Jack thought it was his imagination. But then he heard it again, clearer this time, a soft, pitiful cry. Without thinking, Jack moved toward the sound. The terrain was rough, with jagged rocks and sharp, dry shrubs, but he pushed on, the cries growing louder with every step. As he rounded a rocky outcrop, he froze. There in the middle of the wasteland stood a woman. She was thin, her clothes ragged and torn, as though she had been wandering for days, maybe even weeks. Her hair was matted and unkempt, and her eyes were wide, filled with fear and desperation. She was holding onto two children, both of them barely standing. They were pale, their faces drawn with hunger and exhaustion. The children's eyes were hollow, as if life had already drained out of them. The woman turned towards Jack, her eyes locking onto his with a mixture of pleading and hope. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "help us. My children... They haven't eaten for days. Please, I beg you. Feed them. If you do, I will be yours forever." Jack stood frozen, staring at her. The woman's words were strange almost. Too desperate, too dramatic. But there was no mistaking the fear in her eyes, or the way she clung to the children, as though they were her only hope in a dying world. "What happened to you?" Jack asked, his voice steady but with a tinge of concern. "Why are you out here alone? Where did you come from?" The woman's gaze softened, and she looked down at her children for a moment, as if searching for the right words. We were sent here. From far away," she said slowly, her voice trembling. "My children are not like others. We are not from this world." Jack blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. The wind howled around them, carrying the dust from the barren earth. He could feel the weight of her words, though they made no sense. He had traveled through many strange places, but this was different. Not from this world? Jack repeated, his voice thick with disbelief. "What do you mean?" The woman's eyes darted around nervously, as if she was afraid someone or something was listening. She took a step closer, her voice lowering to a whisper. "We came here because we have nowhere else to go. My children... they are not human. They are beings from a distant place. A place that is dying, a place where there is no food, no hope left. We were sent to find someone who could save us." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. There was something about her, something that didn't quite sit right. Her words were strange, her manner even stranger. The children, though barely able to stand, watched him intently, their hollow eyes following his every movement. "Why me?" Jack asked, his curiosity piqued despite his growing unease. "Why do you need me?" The woman reached out, her hand trembling as it touched Jack's arm. "Because you are the one we've been waiting for. You have the power to save us. To save all of us," she said, her voice urgent now. "If you help. Yes, I will be yours forever. I will give you everything I have, everything I am." Jack recoiled slightly at her words. He could feel a strange pressure building in the air, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Her offer was too much, too strange to understand. but there was no denying the desperation in her eyes. And the children, they were so weak, so frail. He glanced down at the children. They were staring at him with hollow eyes, their faces gaunt from hunger, but there was something almost otherworldly about them. He had seen suffering before, plenty of it, but this felt different. These children weren't just hungry, they were starving in a way that didn't make sense. They looked as if they had not only been deprived of food, but of something more. Something vital. Jack took a deep breath, his mind racing. "I'll help you," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I'll give them food, but I need to know more. What's really going on here?" The woman nodded eagerly, relief flooding her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you. I promise you will never regret this." But as Jack reached for his bag to pull out some rations, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The way she spoke, the strange aura around her, the eerie silence of the place, something was not right. But he had already made his decision. Little did Jack know, this was just the beginning of a much darker journey. Jack carefully unzipped his bag, the weight of the moment hanging over him. The woman's eyes were locked onto him, filled with a desperate hope that felt almost unnatural. He had seen many people in need before, hungry, cold, scared, but there was something about this woman, something unsettling, that made him hesitate. Her children stood beside her, their gaunt faces and hollow eyes haunting him. It was clear they had not eaten in days, maybe weeks, and their frailty sent a chill through him. "Please," the woman whispered again, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and pleading. "Please, you must help us. Feed them. If you do, I will give you everything. Everything I am. I will be yours forever." Jack's hand hovered over the rations in his bag, his mind racing. Forever? Her words echoed in his mind. It was a promise no one ever made lightly. He had heard desperate pleas before, but this felt different. The air around them seemed heavier, charged with something Jack couldn't quite name. He looked at her, unsure what to say. Why do you say you'll be mine forever? What do you mean by that?" The woman took a step closer, her eyes pleading. She was so close now that Jack could see the desperation etched in her features. There was something wild in her gaze, as though she had been pushed to the edge of madness, but Jack could also sense an underlying sincerity. She wasn't lying, not in the way people usually did when they wanted something. This was different. "My children." She paused, glancing down at them. The two children, a boy and a girl, both no older than 10, had their heads down, barely able to stand. The boy's face was bruised, his lips cracked and dry, while the girl clutched her brother tightly, as if afraid to let go. There was a faint glow to their skin, a pale light that didn't seem natural under the setting sun. Jack reached out slowly, pulling out a small packet of dried meat and some water from his bag. "Here," he said, offering it to the boy. The woman's breath caught in her throat as she watched her children take the food. The boy, trembling, reached out with shaking hands and eagerly tore into the dried meat, his eyes wide with hunger. But as he ate, something strange happened. The glow in the children's eyes grew brighter, their bodies seeming to regain a bit of strength. The boy's skin seemed to smooth out, the paleness fading into a more natural color. The girl, too, stopped trembling and looked up at Jack, her eyes now filled with a curious, intense gaze. The woman stepped forward, her voice low. "Do you see? They are not like other children. They are beings from another place. A place far from here. A place where time and food are scarce. We've been searching for someone who can give them what they need." Jack's heart pounded in his chest as the words sank in. Another place? His mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was saying. But there was something in the air, something about the children, that made it hard to question her. "Where are you from?" Jack asked, his voice tense. "Where are these children from?" The woman's eyes flickered as she looked at her children. Then back to Jack. We are from a world on the brink of destruction. My children, they are not human, not as you know it. They are beings of energy, of light, sent here to find someone who can help them survive. They feed off the energy of those who can offer it. And you, Jack, you are the one we've been waiting for." Jack recoiled slightly, his mind struggling to process her words. Energy of light? Not human? It all sounded like something out of a science fiction novel. But standing here, staring at the children, something about it felt real. He could feel it in the air, a strange pull, a connection that was impossible to explain. "I don't understand," Jack muttered, shaking his head. "What do you want from me? Why me?" The woman's eyes grew soft, almost sad, as she stepped closer to him. "You are not like the others, Jack. You have something inside you, something that will help us. We've been searching for someone who could feed them, but not just with food, with your energy, your life force. Only someone with the right spirit can save them." Jack took a step back, his mind reeling. Save them? The way she spoke made it sound like this was not just about food. It was about something much deeper, something that felt far beyond his control. The children had stopped eating, their faces now full of energy, almost too much energy. The boy's eyes glowed brighter than before, and his gaze seemed too knowing for someone so young. The girl had stopped holding her brother, and she stood silently, staring at Jack with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "Please," the woman whispered, her voice now trembling with urgency. "Feed them. If you do, you will not regret it. I swear it. They need you, Jack. They need you more than you know." Jack hesitated, his heart heavy with doubt. He had always been the type to help when he could, but this was different. This wasn't just feeding hungry children. This was something far bigger than he could have ever imagined. But the woman's pleading eyes, and the strange connection he felt to the children, made him question everything he knew. Was this a trap? Or was he truly the one they had been searching? "Oh, The words, "I will be yours forever," echoed in his mind as he took another deep breath, his decision hanging in the balance. "All right," Jack said slowly, his voice steady despite the confusion swirling inside him. "I'll help. But you have to promise me. There's more to this story. I need to know everything." The woman nodded, her face softening with gratitude. "You will learn everything, Jack, everything, in time. But for now, we need you." And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of unease settling deep within him, Jack made his decision. He had no idea just how far this path would take him, or the consequences of the promise he had just made. But one thing was certain: this was only the beginning of something far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. Asterisk as Jack sat there, watching the children slowly regain strength, a gnawing sense of unease grew inside him. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the faint rustling of the wind. The woman's eyes never left him, filled with a mix of gratitude and something darker, something Jack couldn't quite place. The children, now sitting up, their once pale faces gaining color, stared at him with an intensity that felt too knowing for their age. "Tell me more," Jack said, his voice low but firm. He had given them food, but the questions were piling up faster than he could sort through them. This wasn't just about feeding hungry children. There was something far larger at play, something that was unfolding right before his eyes. The woman hesitated for a moment, as if weighing the decision to reveal the full truth. She glanced at her children, then back at Jack. The boy was fiddling with a small, strange object in his hands, something that glowed faintly in the dimming light. The girl, still quiet, watched Jack intently. It was as if they were waiting for him to understand something they already knew. "I told you," the woman began slowly, her voice softer now, as if afraid her words might be too heavy to bear. "We're not from this world. We were sent here to find someone who could help us, someone who could protect us. The children, my children, they're not like human children. They're different. Jack blinked, confusion growing in his chest. What do you mean different? How are they not like other children? The woman lowered her gaze, her hands trembling slightly. They are beings of energy, of pure life force. They were created in a place that's far from here, a world that's dying. Everything there is crumbling, our people, our cities, even the land itself. But my children, they're the last hope of that world. They have powers, Jack, powers that can save their people, maybe even save this world, if they can survive long enough. Jack's heart raced as he absorbed her words. Powers, beings of energy? It sounded like something out of a science fiction novel, but the way she spoke, the way the children glowed with unnatural energy, made it impossible to dismiss. What happened to your world? Jack asked, his voice trembling slightly, the weight of the situation sinking in. The woman closed her eyes, her face hardening with grief. Our world was beautiful once. But then, something changed. We don't know what caused it, but the energy of our world began to drain. The land, the people, everything began to wither. There was no food, no water, no hope. The children you see before you, my children, they are the last of their kind. They are the key to saving what's left of our world. But they need to feed, to absorb energy in order to survive. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The woman's voice had turned colder now, her desperation palpable. The energy they need can only be drawn from one source, someone who has the right life force. Someone like you, Jack, you. You have something inside you, something that can give them what they need. Jack's eyes widened in disbelief. Me? What do you mean? Why me? The woman stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. You're different. Jack, you've always been different. That's why we found you. The energy inside you. It's unlike anything we've encountered before. The children have fed off the energy of many others, but nothing has given them the strength they need. Except for you. Jack took a step back, his mind racing. He had always considered himself an ordinary man, someone with no special powers or abilities. Just a traveler, wandering from place to place, trying to find meaning in a world that seemed lost. But now everything had changed. What happens if I help you? Jack asked, his voice quieter now, almost afraid to hear the answer. The woman's expression turned grave. If you help us, Jack, you will give the children what they need to survive. You will help them grow stronger, and with that strength, they can return to our world and stop its destruction. They will save everything, if they can survive long enough. Jack didn't know what to say. The weight of her words settled over him, heavy and suffocating. What she was asking of him wasn't just a simple act of kindness. She wanted him to give part of himself, to offer something he didn't even understand, in exchange for the lives of two strange children who were clearly more than they seemed. But what's in it for me? Jack asked, his voice low and guarded. What happens to me if I help you? What do you mean by saying I'll give them what they need? The woman's eyes flickered with a strange emotion, fear, perhaps, or maybe something darker. She hesitated before answering, her voice barely a whisper. You will be tied to them, Jack. Your energy will become theirs. In return for your help, you will have powers, strength like you've never known. But you will also be bound to them, forever. They will not forget you, and you will not forget them. You will be linked in ways you cannot yet understand. The words sent a shock through Jack's body, his heart pounding in his chest. Forever, the woman's promise echoed in his mind again. He wasn't just helping them survive. He was becoming part of their fate, tied to their world, to their power. Jack tried to make sense of what she was saying, but the more she spoke, the more he realized he didn't fully understand the consequences. What would it mean for him to help them? Would he lose himself in the process, become just another piece of the puzzle? Could he really give them what they needed without giving up everything he knew? He turned his gaze to the children, who were now standing, their faces filled with an odd mixture of hope and longing. They were still too young to fully understand what was happening, but their eyes, those glowing, unnaturally bright eyes, seemed to hold an ancient wisdom far beyond their years. "I don't know if I can do this," Jack muttered, his voice heavy with uncertainty. The woman placed a hand on his arm, her grip strong yet gentle. "You can, Jack. You're the only one who can. We've been searching for you for so long. Don't turn away now. The fate of our world depends on it. And the fate of yours too." Jack closed his eyes, the weight of her words pressing down on him. The fate of both worlds. What choice did he really have? He didn't know if he was ready for what was to come, but he knew one thing for sure. His life would never be the same again. Asterisk. The wind howled again, carrying with it the sharp sting of desert dust, as Jack stood motionless in front of the woman. Her words hung in the air like a thick fog, impossible to ignore. "The fate of both worlds depends on you." The weight of her promise pressed down on him, heavy and suffocating. He had already made the decision to help, but the more he heard, the more he questioned the consequences. Could he truly live with what he was about to do? The woman's voice broke through his thoughts. "You've made the right choice, Jack. Now there's no turning back." Jack's heart pounded in his chest. No turning back. It wasn't just about feeding the children anymore. She wasn't asking him to be their savior. She was asking him to become a part of their world. He would have to give something far greater than food, far greater than energy. Something that would bind him to them in ways he couldn't yet understand. "Before you agree to anything further," Jack said, his voice unsteady, "tell me what I'm really signing up for. You said I would be bound to them, that my energy would become theirs. But what does that mean for me? Will I lose myself?" The woman's gaze softened, and she stepped closer. Her eyes were intense, almost pleading, but there was a hint of sadness buried in them as well. "You will not lose yourself, Jack, not entirely. But the bond between you and my children will be deep. Your strength will grow, but so will the connection. Their power will flow through you, and in return, you will have a power unlike anything you've ever known. It's a fair trade, but it's not without cost." Jack's mind raced. His heart beat faster now, a mix of excitement and fear growing inside him. The idea of power, of strength, was tantalizing. He had always felt weak, drifting aimlessly through the world. But now there was an opportunity to become something more. "And what's the cost?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman hesitated for a moment, looking at her children, then back at him. "The cost is your freedom, Jack. The deeper the bond becomes, the harder it will be to break. You will always feel their presence, always sense their needs, even when they're far from you. They will grow stronger with every act of feeding, and as they grow, so will their power over you." A shiver ran down Jack's spine. The thought of being forever tied to something or someone was terrifying. He had always prided himself on his independence, on his ability to walk away from situations when they became too dangerous. But this was different. This wasn't just about saving a world, it was about surrendering a part of himself, forever. But there's more to it, isn't there? Jack pressed, his mind beginning to piece things together. "You said they're the last hope for your world, and I'm supposed to help them. But what happens if I refuse? What happens if I don't give them what they need?" The woman's face darkened, her eyes flashing with a mixture of frustration and something darker. "If you refuse, Jack, you risk more than just your own life. You risk everything. The storm that's coming isn't just for us, it's for you too. These children are the last of their kind, and if they don't survive, if they don't gain the strength they need, everything will be lost. The invasion will reach your world, and nothing will be able to stop it. Not even you." Jack's heart thudded painfully in his chest. The invasion. It wasn't just some natural disaster or some twisted fate. It was an invasion of unimaginable proportions. The woman's words hit him like a sledgehammer. He wasn't just helping them because he wanted to. He was helping them because the very fabric of his world depended on it. So you're saying, "I have no choice," Jack muttered, his voice heavy with the realization. The woman nodded, her expression solemn. "In a way, yes. But know this, Jack. Helping us doesn't mean you lose yourself. It means you gain something. Power, knowledge, the strength to stand against things you've never even imagined. And you'll gain something else too." Jack frowned, confused. "What do you mean, something else?" She hesitated, her gaze drifting towards the children, who were now watching him intently, their glowing eyes never leaving his. There was something unsettling about the way they looked at him, something as though they knew him, as though they were already linked to him in ways that transcended time and space. "You'll gain us," she said softly, her voice tinged with sorrow. "You will not be alone in this world anymore. We will always be with you, forever." The words hung in the air like a promise and a warning all at once. Jack felt a strange tug at his chest. It wasn't fear, no, it was something deeper, something more primal. It was a feeling of destiny, as though the universe itself was pulling him into this moment. "I don't know if I can do this," Jack whispered, his voice barely audible. "I don't know if I'm ready to be tied to something like this." "What? If I lose who I am, what if I can't handle it?" The woman stepped forward, placing a hand on his arm. Her touch was warm and strangely comforting, but there was a strength behind it that he couldn't deny. "You already have what it takes, Jack. You just don't realize it yet. You're stronger than you think. The bond we share will give you what you need. You won't lose yourself unless you choose to. You will become part of something bigger. And in return, you will have the power to change everything." Jack's mind was a whirlwind of confusion, but deep inside, something told him that this was the path he had to take. The invasion, the storm, the children, it was all leading him here to this moment. There was no turning back. He took a deep breath, his decision settling within him like a weight on his shoulders. "All right, I'll help you. I'll help them." The woman's face broke into a smile, a look of profound relief washing over her. "Thank you, Jack. You've made the right choice." As she spoke, Jack felt something shift inside him. A subtle warmth began to spread through his chest, and for the first time in his life, he felt the weight of destiny settle around him. Whatever this was, whatever he was about to become a part of, it was far bigger than him. And there was no turning back. The next few days blurred into a haze of uncertainty. Jack's decision was made, but his mind was still racing, trying to make sense of what he had agreed to. The woman, who had introduced herself as Elena, led them deeper into the desolate landscape. The children, who had now regained some strength, moved with an unnerving grace, their eyes glowing with that strange, unsettling energy. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were more than they appeared, that they were waiting for something or someone. As they traveled, Jack's senses seemed sharper. His movements were quicker, more agile. He didn't fully understand it, but something had shifted inside him. At night, he would lie awake, feeling an odd energy coursing through his veins. The connection to Elena and her children, though still foreign and unsettling, was growing stronger. Elena had told him that the bond would take time to fully establish, but he could already feel the subtle pull of their presence. It was as if they were always in his peripheral vision, even when they weren't near. It was a feeling he couldn't quite explain, like a faint hum in the back of his mind, always there, tugging at him. One evening, after a long day of walking, Elena stopped abruptly, her face turning serious. Jack had learned to read her expressions, and this one was unlike any he had seen before. There was a tension in her posture, a readiness in the way she moved. Her voice, when she spoke, was low and urgent. "This is it," she said. "The first trial." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "Trial? What trial?" "The bond between you and the children is still forming," Elena explained, her eyes scanning the horizon as if she was expecting something. "But it's time to test it. You need to see if you're truly ready for what's coming." Jack frowned, trying to make sense of her words. "What exactly do you mean by test?" Before she could answer, the air around them shifted. The wind, which had been calm just moments before, suddenly picked up, howling with unnatural force. Jack shielded his eyes from the dust and looked around, trying to make sense of what was happening. In the distance, a dark shape loomed, something large and foreboding, moving quickly toward them. "Elena, what is that?" Jack asked, his voice edged with concern. Her gaze hardened. "It's a creature of the storm, a harbinger. It's coming to test you." The dark shape grew larger, and Jack could now make out the features of the creature. It was humanoid in shape, but twisted, as if something had warped its very essence. Its body was cloaked in shadow, its limbs unnaturally long and thin. The creature's eyes glowed with an eerie, unnatural light, and its movements were jerky, as if it were being controlled by some unseen force. Jack instinctively took a step back, his hand reaching for the weapon strapped to his side. But Elena's voice stopped him. "No," she said sharply. "This isn't something you can fight with weapons. The trial isn't about strength, it's about control. About learning to harness the bond you've made." Jack was confused. "Control? I don't understand. What am I supposed to do?" Elena's eyes met his, her expression full of determination. "The creature is drawn to the energy within you. It senses the bond you share with my children. If you can't control that energy, it will consume you. You need to focus, Jack. Trust the connection. Let the bond guide you." The creature was now mere yards away, its glowing eyes fixed on Jack. He could feel the pull of its presence, a suffocating pressure that made it hard to breathe. It was as if the creature was feeding on the fear it induced, growing stronger. With each passing second, Jack's heart hammered in his chest as he glanced at the children. The boy's eyes were fixed on the creature, and his face was calm, almost serene. The girl, too, stood motionless, her gaze unwavering. It was as if they knew exactly what to do. Jack's mind raced, trying to make sense of everything Elena had told him. Focus, trust the connection. The bond between them, between him and the children, was still new, still raw. But there was something inside him now, a stirring, a power he had never known. It felt like a flame that had been kindled within him, small and fragile, but growing, waiting to burst into something more. He closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. The world around him seemed to fall away, leaving only the creature, Elena, and the children. He focused on the pull, the strange energy that was now coursing through his body. He could feel it, the connection to the children, to Elena, to the very force that had brought them here. Suddenly, the creature lunged forward, its shadowy limbs reaching for Jack. Instinctively, he raised his hands, trying to push the creature back. To his surprise, a burst of energy shot from his fingertips, a wave of force that sent the creature stumbling backward. The creature let out an eerie screech, its glowing eyes widening in shock. Jack stood frozen for a moment, staring at his hands. He had done that. He had forced it back. "Good," Elena's voice rang out, sharp and proud. "You're learning, but don't get comfortable. The creature won't stop until it's fed." Jack didn't have time to process her words. The creature was already recovering, its movements jerking unnaturally as it prepared for another attack. But this time, Jack was ready. He could feel the energy within him growing stronger, the bond with the children and Elena making him more powerful with each passing second. The creature lunged again, but this time Jack didn't fight it with force. Instead, he reached out with his mind, tapping into the connection he had formed. The energy within him flared, and suddenly the creature froze in midair, its limbs stiffening. As if it had been caught in an invisible web, Jack focused harder, willing the creature to stay still. And for a moment, it did. Elena's voice cut through the air once more. "You're doing it, Jack. You're using the bond. Keep it up." With one final push of will, Jack sent a pulse of energy through the air. The creature let out a final screech before it disintegrated into shadow, fading away as if it had never existed. Jack collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. His body felt drained, as if he had just run a marathon. But there was also a strange sense of triumph, a rush of power that surged through him. He had done it. He had passed the first trial. Elena walked over to him, her face soft with approval. "You're ready for what's coming, Jack. The bond is stronger now. But this is only the beginning. The storm will keep coming, and you will have to keep growing." Jack looked up at her, his chest still heaving with exertion. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he could feel the truth in her words. There was no turning back now. The trials were just beginning. The night air was still, a quiet silence descending over the barren landscape. Jack sat on the edge of a small campfire, staring into the dancing flames, trying to calm his racing thoughts. The first trial had been intense, a glimpse into the power he had started to wield, but it left him with more questions than answers. Elena had told him that there was more to come, that the bond between him and the children was just the beginning. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened next. It started with a low hum in the air. At first it was faint, a distant sound barely perceptible against the usual desert winds. But as the seconds passed, the hum grew louder, and a strange electric charge filled the atmosphere. Jack's skin prickled, his senses on high alert. It was as though the very air itself had shifted, and something vast and terrifying was moving toward them. Elena was the first to notice. She stood up abruptly, her eyes scanning the horizon, her face hardening with dread. The children, still standing silently by the fire, turned their eyes toward her, their glowing eyes narrowing in unison. "They're here," Elena said, her voice tense. "The storm. The invasion has begun." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, the invasion? I thought we had more time." "There's no more time," Elena replied, her eyes narrowing with a fierce determination. "The creatures we've been facing, they were just scouts, harbingers sent to weaken us, to test our strength. But the true invasion has begun now. And it's worse than we imagined." Jack's pulse quickened. "What do we do now? How do we stop them?" Elena took a deep breath, her gaze hardening. "We fight. We don't have a choice. The children. They are the key to stopping this, but they can't do it alone. You have to help them." Jack stood, the weight of the moment sinking in. He had made the decision to help them, to help the children, but now the stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. This wasn't just about saving a distant world, it was about preventing the collapse of everything he knew. He couldn't back out now. As if on cue, a roar split the night sky, a sound that chilled Jack's blood. From the horizon, a dark shape loomed, growing larger with every passing second. It wasn't a creature, it was something far worse. A massive ship, sleek and black, with jagged edges that seemed to tear through the air like a knife. It hovered ominously above the ground, its engines glowing with a sickly red light. "Are they?" Jack trailed off, his throat dry with fear. "They're here," Elena answered, her eyes locked on the ship. "The invaders, the ones who've been hunting us." The children stepped forward, their faces serene yet filled with a quiet power. Jack could feel the bond between them intensify, the energy within him thrumming with a new urgency. The ship's presence seemed to amplify the connection, as if it were feeding off their fear, drawing power from their every emotion. "We need to stop them before they reach the ground," Elena said. "The invasion will be swift and brutal. They've come to take what they want by force." Before Jack could respond, the ship's massive doors opened with a deafening screech, and from within, several armored figures dropped to the ground. With terrifying speed. They were humanoid, but distorted larger than any human, their bodies encased in armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Their eyes glowed with the same eerie light Jack had seen in the creatures before. "Get ready," Alima said, her voice low and steady. "This is the first wave. They will test us, see how strong we really are. But if we fail, they will keep coming, and we won't survive." Jack felt his stomach churn with dread, but he knew he couldn't back down. Not now, the children's. Energy pulsed through him, a force that made his limbs feel lighter, faster. He had only begun to understand his power, but now was the moment to see if it was enough. One of the invaders raised its arm, and Jack felt the air around him vibrate with an unnatural hum. Without warning, a bolt of energy shot toward him, fast and blinding. Jack instinctively raised his hand, and to his shock, a surge of energy erupted from his palm, deflecting the bolt with a force that sent the invaders stumbling back. "Good," Elena shouted, her eyes alight with pride. "You're using the bond. Keep it up." But Jack didn't have time to think. More bolts of energy flew toward them, and the invaders charged forward with inhuman speed, their movements a blur. Jack could feel the power inside him growing stronger, his connection to the children amplifying with every passing second. The boy, he had started to recognize the subtle differences in them, stepped forward, his eyes glowing brighter than before. He held out his hand, and the very ground beneath them trembled. A massive pulse of energy shot out, slamming into the invaders with such force that it sent them flying backward. Jack gasped in awe, but the battle was far from over. The invaders were relentless, their numbers growing with each passing moment. They seemed to multiply, as if the ship was sending down endless reinforcements. But Jack could feel something in the air, a crackling energy that told him this was just the beginning. The children's powers were growing stronger, but so was the enemy. "You need to stay focused," Elena warned, her eyes scanning the battlefield. "The bond is our only advantage. You must use it, use the energy to stop them before they overwhelm us." Jack nodded, his mind now clear. He could feel the pulsing power within him, the energy of the children and Elena merging with his own. This was no longer just a fight for survival, it was a fight for everything. The invasion had begun, and the fate of both worlds rested on their shoulders. With a deep breath, Jack stepped forward, his hand raised. He called upon the energy, feeling it surge through him like a tidal wave. A burst of light erupted from his palm, sending a shockwave through the invaders, knocking them off their feet. But still, they came. And Jack realized as the battle raged around him that this was only the beginning. The storm had come, and with it, the true test of everything. He had Biko. The battle raged on into the night, and Jack felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. The air was thick with energy, every bolt of light, every burst of power, seemed to crackle with the desperation of their struggle. The invaders had only grown more relentless, their numbers seeming endless. And yet, despite the overwhelming odds, Jack could feel something inside him pushing him forward, a drive fueled not just by fear, but by the energy he had tapped into, by the bond he had forged with Elena and the children. As the invaders continued to advance, Jack stood at the center of the chaos, his heart pounding in his chest. The power was there, pulsing beneath his skin. He could feel it, a deep, raw energy flowing from the children, from Elena, and from himself. But it wasn't enough. "Not yet, they're getting closer." Elena's voice cut through the roar of the battle. Her face was grim, her expression hard. "We need to finish this now, or it's all over." Jack nodded, his focus narrowing. The connection between him and the children was stronger than ever. He could sense their thoughts, their emotions, as if they were a part of him. They had become more than just beings of energy. They were his allies, his companions, his responsibility. The boy stepped forward, his glowing eyes locking with Jack's. For a moment, it was as though they shared a single mind. The bond between them so strong that it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. The energy surged between them, and Jack could feel the power flooding into him like a torrent. It was overwhelming, too much to control, but he pushed it back, forcing it into a single concentrated focus. He raised his hand, and the sky above seemed to respond. The clouds above darkened, swirling ominously as a storm of energy gathered in the air. Jack could feel the power building within him, the raw force of the bond with the children, giving him strength he never thought possible. But as he focused, a deep sense of dread settled in his stomach. This was no ordinary power. This was not something that could be controlled without consequences. Jack! Elena's voice was urgent, breaking his concentration. Be careful. You're on the edge. You don't understand what you're doing. But Jack was past listening. The invaders were closing in, and every instinct inside him screamed that this was the only way. If he could just harness the energy, the full force of the bond, he could end this, once and for all. The storm above him crackled with raw, unchecked power. The children stood behind him, silent but unwavering. Jack could feel their presence, their faith in him, even though they had said nothing. They were ready, but was he? The energy inside Jack surged again, this time uncontrollable. His mind was flooded with visions, flashes of the distant world from which the children came. He saw their people, their cities, their crumbling world, a world on the brink of annihilation. He saw the storm that had consumed everything, the invaders who had come to take what was left. And he saw himself in the center of it all, standing as their last hope. Enough! Jack shouted, his voice shaking with the force of the power he was summoning. The energy around him crackled, threatening to break free. I can do this. I have to do this. But even as he spoke, something inside him shifted, a flicker of doubt, a voice warning him that he was crossing a line he couldn't come back from. The power surged in him again, but this time it felt different. It wasn't just the bond with the children. It wasn't just the energy of their world. It was his energy, his life force, his essence. And he realized, too late, that the cost was more than he had anticipated. Elena. Jack gasped, his voice faltering. I can feel it. I can feel myself changing. The woman's face softened with concern, but there was something else there too, a recognition. She had warned him, but even she hadn't fully understood what would happen when the bond reached its breaking point. You can't control it. Like this, Jack, Elena cried, rushing toward him. You need to stop, or you'll lose yourself forever. But Jack didn't stop. The storm overhead was too powerful now, too intense. The invaders were almost upon them. The energy was tearing through him, pulling him towards something, someone, but he couldn't see who or what. All he knew was that he had to release it. He had to save them. He focused on the children, on their faces that were now illuminated with the same eerie glow that had drawn him to them in the first place. In that moment, he understood. This was their world, their power, their fate, and now it was his. He was bound to them in a way that could never be undone. But in the back of his mind, a voice screamed at him. What will you become? The storm in. The sky turned into a blinding flash of light. Jack's body trembled with the weight of the energy he was channeling. The invaders, now fully on the ground, screeched, their bodies flailing against the immense force that was emanating from him. But Jack didn't flinch. He could feel the pull of the children's power, feel their desperate need to survive. And he was their conduit. This was the moment, he realized. The moment of choice. He could end the invasion. He could save them all, but at what cost? The energy surged one final time, and Jack let go. It was as though a dam had broken within him. A wave of light, raw and powerful, exploded from his body, engulfing the invaders in its wake. The sky itself seemed to rip apart, the storm dissipating into nothingness, and the invaders, the threat, disappeared. For a long moment, everything was silent. Jack stood there, breathless, his body shaking with exhaustion. The children were at his side, their faces unreadable but their power still palpable, filling the space around them. Elena stood behind him, watching with a mixture of relief and something else, something Jack couldn't quite place. He had saved them. But at what cost? Jack's eyes met Elena's, and for the first time he understood. The bond was eternal. It could never be undone. "You did it, Jack," Elena said softly, her voice full of awe and sadness. "But you've changed. And now, we are forever tied together. You are a part of us now, and we a part of you." Jack's gaze drifted to the children, their eyes still glowing, still filled with that strange, otherworldly wisdom. He had saved them, but in doing so, had he saved himself? There was no going back.